So I created something called the Value Chain Initiative, Value Chain Innovation Initiative at Stanford. It's exactly because I personally have experienced the importance of collaboration between academic and industry. But what can we do? I think the first thing we must do is we recognize no single companies can tackle this disruption single-handedly. We're all in it together. So there is a need for us to use better tools to be connected with information. I always advise companies is that you want to diversify. The China plus one could be Mexico, too. But don't just duplicate the same factory in China into the other countries. Because the other countries, everyone has special characteristics, has different strengths, and different limitations.
Summit and Expo 2025. We're interviewing different speakers, attendees, and influencers of the industry, and we're here with Hau Lee. And we're very excited for this conversation. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
I think you have vast experience on many topics, and we'd love to hear it more and expand this interview. And maybe you can start telling us about your career path in supply chain. How did you ended up in this industry?
So I started as a professor at Stanford University, but I always wanted to work with industry. So early on, I started working with industry companies like Cisco and Hewlett-Packard, Digital, Apple, and I started learning about how important these companies have to manage their supply chain. And so that became something I wanted to do research. I also wanted to help industry and companies to improve their supply chain. So that's what I have done. Over 40 years, I've been helping companies in high tech, in automobile, in apparel, and all kinds. But it's not just global companies, but also I like to work with emerging economies. So I work with companies in Mexico, CEMEX, that type of companies. I work with South America, East Europe, and also Asia, because this is a global world. Global supply chain is still how we have to manage and run well.
Would you also share a little bit more about the initiative that you have at Stanford University called SEED?
So I created something called the Value Chain Initiative, Value Chain Innovation Initiative at Stanford. It's exactly because I personally have experienced the importance of collaboration between academic and industry. I actually spent my sabbatical working full-time in industry. I created some companies, that software companies, to serve industry. So I learned so much from industry, and I want to give back. And the best way to give back is to create a platform. And this is the platform where outside companies would come to Stanford, and I also collaborate with other academic institutions so that we can all innovate and try to come up with new way of doing things that would benefit everyone.
And talking on this point of global supply chain, because now we are connected with multiple countries, multiple regions, we're more prone to feel the disruptions that are constantly occurring in our world. How can we ensure that our supply chains are resilient enough to survive these disruptions despite their global environment?
Yes. Well, I think you are right there. Increasingly, the disruptions are happening everywhere. Disruptions, some of them are small magnitude, some of them are huge, like hurricane, fire, and the flood, earthquake, and then COVID-19, and then now the disruptions can be from a major tariffs or trade embargo restrictions. Well, what can we do? I think the first thing we must do is we recognize no single companies can tackle this disruption single-handedly. We're all in it together. So there is a need for us to use better tools to be connected with information, with better way to forecast, with better way to inform each other, of better way to plan and replan. When there's a disruption that happens, how can we replan? And there is some need for flexibility. Flexibility meaning if we discover that one country cannot be our major source, can we quickly find another source or provide investments so as to create a second source? I think all of these are ways to create a more resilient world, which means that we cannot pursue this single-handedly. So increasingly, more and more companies need to get together to share resources, to share knowledge and information as well.
How can we achieve this better way of operating, as you mentioned? Because I feel like most of our audience would like to have some tangible advice on specifically how to deal with these potential disruptions, especially because on a risk management perspective, of course you cannot prepare for every single event, but then how should we still be prepared if they happen?
So there are two major obstacles on this type of a dream of collaboration, right? So one is there's still a lot of mistrust in the supply chain. Can I trust you if I give you too much information? Would you exploit me and make use of it? And so there's a mistrust. Mistrust at the company level, and in these days, mistrust at the country level. So there's mistrust. And the second one is, in what way can I really collaborate? So is it just giving you information? So we need to create tools so that the right information is shared. We don't need to share everything. We have to be selective. The right kind of information can enable me to improve my design, can improve my productivity. So I think what we need is to have more pilots. Start with small scale. Small, maybe only 2 companies collaborating. Don't think of 100 companies collaborating on day one. So 2 companies, and then select the right information so that we can improve the flexibility, so that we can improve the design, engineering exchanges. And so I think we start small. And second is that when we have some small wins, it would enhance the trust between trading partners. And when trust is built, we will collaborate deeper. I have done it before. I have worked with companies like Hewlett Packard, collaborating with their Japanese supplier, Cadenas. I have worked with companies like Rio Tinto in Australia, working with steel companies in China, steel companies in Japan. And bit by bit by bit, they became stronger and stronger, and the resilience is built up.
Going back to part of your reply from our previous question, which was, how can we diversify our sources or the countries that we work for? I know you've talked about a lot of China plus one strategies. Could you tell us more from your experience?
So these days, a lot of companies wanted to do China plus one strategy, China plus two, China plus 10, China plus N, and they want to diversify from China. I always advise companies is that you want to diversify. The China plus one could be Mexico, too. But don't just duplicate the same factory in China into the other countries. Because the other countries, everyone has special characteristics, has different strengths, and different limitations. And so this is almost like a personality fit. So I cannot say, well, whatever my strength is, I want you to be like me. No, nobody should be like me. We collaborate because you have certain strengths, I don't. I have certain strengths, you don't. So let's leverage each other. So Mexico and China are 2 different countries with 2 different capabilities. And maybe the China plus one, if it is Mexico, we focus on certain products. We focus on certain flexibility of volumes. We focus on different timing. We focus on different processes with different engineering change, with different innovation. And then resulted in a better 2 factories. So the 2 factories should not be identical. Maybe the Mexican factories, because of the skilled labor type, or because we're closer to the market, we invest more in automation. And so that's very different. So the 2 factories would have 2 personalities, and the 2 personalities together would be stronger. Maybe 3 personalities and so on. So I think China diversification should not be duplication. People confuse with diversification with duplication. Duplicating more of the same with more. Yeah. That is the very expensive way of creating redundancy.
In this geopolitical instability that we have, what would be your advice to supply chain leaders when facing, for example, the increase in tariffs or other types of disruptions that we're facing? in order to keep functioning at the most optimal way?
Yeah. So I have a very simple advice to the supply chain leaders. They're not easy to execute, but the simple advice is that when we're faced with cost escalation, and the cost could be transportation costs going up or tariffs, right? Tariffs going up. And so everyone is thinking about what can I do to cut costs? So cost reduction. And cost reduction can only be achieved by productivity gains. So no question, I think we should focus on being more agile, creating a supply chain that is more efficient, less labor wastage. It's true, but that's, I call it defensive mode, defensive move. You defend better because the world is, the pressure is so high, the stress is so high, let's defend well. But we should also think about supply chain as a way to attack, as an engine to grow, engine for innovation. Which means that if I set up a factory in Mexico, let's say, I don't want to just use the Mexican factory to just manufacture, cut costs and reduce. I want to leverage the capability of the engineers in Mexico or maybe the experience that they have in manufacturing to create new products, to create new processes. And that's what I think Nike has experienced. Nike has manufacturers, and the manufacturers are in Vietnam, are in Indonesia, and they're very good at manufacturing. But what Nike discovered is that when those manufacturers are very mature and they own the ability to innovate in creating the new materials or new way of gluing the shoes together or new performance. And so Nike is leveraging them as an engine for innovation. And so I hope that supply chain can become an engine of innovation. That is what I call offense. So supply chain should be both strong in defense and strong in offense, just like a football team. I think Mexico has a lot of good football team, and Mexican is always playing World Cup also. A good football team should not be only good in defense. You need to have good attack. Combined together, you make a strong football team.
We come to the end of our interview. We'd love to have more time with you, Professor, but again, we appreciate your time. Looking forward to meet you again.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Perfect. We're still here at the Logistics World Summit and Expo 2025, and we invite you to keep listening to all of our interviews, follow our social media, follow us on YouTube, and let's stay in touch.